Hello my friends, it's Ranger Russ from the Meggs Point Nature Center here at Hammonasset Beach State Park. I am on the Shoreline Greenway trail. I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes before I get started looking at this amazing view of Hammonasset. If anyone saw just a few minutes ago, I did a program, or I pulled over on the side of the road because there was a diamondback terrapin that was just digging a hole. My sound was not on. I just jumped out of the truck and started filming it. But that was a diamondback terrapin laying its eggs, or digging a hole to lay its eggs. It was way too close to the road, and the cars driving by really spooked it. It flinched every time a car drove by, and finally it took off. But today's program is on the Shoreline Greenway Trail. If you have been watching my videos, I have done one video on the first half of the Greenway Trail. So we're going to be starting from the point that I started last time, but we're going to go in the other direction. The Shoreline Greenway Trail, they're actually out here today. I ran into them when I was on my way out to this point. They are clearing a tree that's down, so we may see them. They may be done by the time we get there. Before we get out there, let's take a look right here. We've got curly dock. This is going to be in my, my plant program that I have coming up called Ethnobotany. And this is in the buckwheat family. So there is some curly dock right on the side. I think I showed that when it was green on my other video. So I'm just going to turn the camera around here. Okay, so again, we are on the Shoreline Greenway Trail. I'm going to try not to film people as they go by, so I might flip it to myself. Or point off to something on the side. But this program is going to be more of a woods program, but it goes along the marsh, which is a really great opportunity to see two habitats right where they go up against one another. That buffer zone between the two habitats is really thin and narrow along the Greenway Trail. So this is going to be really fun. If you want to see the first program that I did, you can visit meggspointnaturecenter.org's virtual learning center, or you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, Meggs Point Nature Center YouTube channel. And all of our past, not all of them, most of our past videos are up. We're trying to get them up as we go. So keep an eye out. The videos get put up as often as possible. So we're going to switch it around now, since there aren't any more people in front of me. And I'll try and avoid filming people. I know they don't like that too much. Let's look at this right here. I'll be doing this in a wildflower program coming up as well. But let's take a look at, can't angle down here. Here we go. Queen Anne's lace right there. We talked about a relative of Queen Anne's lace on my program. Oh, there's a bumblebee getting some pollen. On our Cedar Island Trail program, I did talk about Golden Alexander, which is a relative of the Queen Anne's lace, which is a relative of the carrots. It's in the carrot family, or the same family as carrots. Okay, here we've got some berries. These look like... these are wine berries, so these are an invasive. They're quite tasty, but they are invasive. We don't really like to see these all over the place, actually. There's different ones here, okay? I just made a major mistake. I saw wine berries on one side of the bush, and these are raspberries. So this is a raspberry. These are okay to have. Over on this side are the wine berries. So you should really look at the leaves and the stem of every plant. All right? The wineberries are not berry yet. They're not in bloom. The raspberries are berries already. So, and I'm wondering if there are any that are ripe enough to eat. I'd like to have one of these. Let's see if this one's good. Oh, they're still a bit sour. I like sour things though, so that's actually pretty good. Okay, so, and here's some more berries. This is another invasive. These are Asian honeysuckle. They get the double berry, 2 berries that are connected. So if you see that, they are attached. It's pretty cool, but again, this is another invasive. Not something we really like to see here at the park. All right. Now let's just see what else we can see. This first part is really open. We're in the sun. It goes right along Route 1. Here's some ragweed on this side. This is one of the major allergens. Most people that have allergies to pollen, this is a big one for you. Okay. Got some goldenrod. That's awesome. I think that's the first goldenrod that I've seen of the year, in bloom anyway. And now we're moving into some trees. So we've got some pioneer trees. Some of the first trees to grow are going to be these. These are sassafras. There's a lot of vine growing down here. This is cat briar or green briar. A bull briar, there's lots of names for it. That's another pioneer species. So these are species that grow when an area has been clear cut and then allowed to go back, transition back into a forest. When we get deeper in, we'll get away from those pioneer species. Is Golden Alexander the one with the black center dot? The Golden Alexander I don't think has that. It's the Queen Anne's lace that gets that two little petals in the center that are, they're actually a deep, deep purple if you look at them through a magnifying glass. So here we looked at some large sassafras. There's a large sassafras there. Look at that bark. Very distinctive bark, really nice furrows in the bark. I love the bark of sassafras. It's really cool. It's actually a soft bark too. It's not really hard. You can see it flakes off pretty easily. So that's a soft, fast-growing tree. Here we've got a little sapling of the tree. And look at the stem of the sapling. It is green. Okay. So that will grow into that deep furrowed. And then we've got some green briar right here. Where's the access to the trail? Great question. If you park right out on Route 1, there's a Shoreline Greenway Trail parking lot, and you go from there, you're heading west into the park, and then once you get out by the main road, you're going to take a right, and you'll be right on this trail. Look at how beautiful this trail is today. It's a little warm, but there's a breeze, so it feels really comfortable walking this trail right now. The sunlight coming through, the canopy is not really thick here, so there's patches of sunlight. One of the things you might notice, look at the pattern on the ground with the sunlight and the shadows. That really resembles a lot of wild animals. Camouflage matches that patterning on the ground. So a box turtle is a prime example of that. Their pattern would blend right in with the shadows and sunlight, sunspots on the ground and the leaves where they like to live. We're going to take a look right over here because here's our first pretty good view of the salt marsh. And you can see this is the buffer between the salt marsh and an upland forest. This is a very narrow buffer. Typically, you're going to get a lot more of the high tide bush, the marsh alder. They're going to grow along here in a thicker row. There is a little bit of high tide bush out there, but not a whole lot because this is a thin buffer. It gets pretty quickly up into a steep upland woodland. We've got bikers just went by, and again, this is a fantastic trail. It's great for biking. It's great. It's nice and wide so you can keep your social distance. I've actually seen people walking together that are socially distant, one on one side of the trail and the other on the far side of the trail. So you can do that. We're going to look here. I always want to point this out to people because you can never be too aware of poison ivy. So here we have poison ivy. It's growing up the tree. It's just a narrow vine. A lot of times poison ivy will get a much thicker vine. But this is just a thin little vine of poison ivy. You know, usually 3 leaves growing together, so that's good there. One of these leaves looks pretty shredded. The leaves are shiny when it's first growing, but as the summer goes on, the leaves will get dull. That's the usual oil. It's just not as much on the surface, but you still need to watch out for that oil. You can get poison ivy from any part of the plant at any time of the year. So you don't want to touch the roots. Even in the middle of the winter, you can get poison ivy. All right, we're going to move along the trail here and see what other things we can find. Let's check for questions. I see a few people. Clinton Childcare says hello, hello. Unfortunately, many of you that would be coming to programs here are not able to because, you know, the Nature Center right now is closed. But you can continue to watch these programs and hopefully get a little bit more knowledge about our environment. And I see a comment that I missed about sassafras. Make sassafras tea out of the roots. Yep. Sassafras is a very flavorful. The leaves are actually very citrusy or fruity in smell when you crush them up. Look at that poison ivy coming off the tree there. Look how large that is. And it's just suspended. That's suspended a good 4 feet off of that tree, maybe more. And then down here we've got some really large poison ivy leaves. It's mixed in with a little bit of Virginia creeper, those 5-leaved ones down there. And some people are allergic to Virginia creeper, so you want to watch out for that one as well. But poison ivy is much worse. And here's a vine that you don't have to watch out for. This is Asian bittersweet. This is an invasive. We don't really like to see this, but trees, and it chokes out the trees. It takes the sunlight. You can see there's a little bit here. Oh, we're coming up on our Greenway Trail friends that are out maintaining the trail. These are 2 of our volunteers. Not our volunteers, of Greenway Trail volunteers. And they maintain the trails. They pick up the trash. When a tree falls across the trail, they clear that, which is, I think, what they're working on today. Oh, it's a very low branch it looks like they're working on. All right, we're gonna duck by here. It looks like it was a cherry tree that came down that they're clearing. Someone says, I cleared away some poison ivy here at home, and it's itchy right now, yeah. That's pretty awful. If you have touch-me-not in your yard, you can rub that on the yttrial oil. It neutralizes it. So, someone says, too bad the birds love the cherries. They do love the cherries. There are quite a few cherries out here. And there's also some high bush blueberry, which I believe is right over there in that thicket. But look at the great views of the marsh. You can see some little salt pans out there. You can rub, it's called touch-me-not or jewelweed. You can rub that on and it neutralizes the oils. Look at the views from here. If you want to find a nice place to just sit and enjoy the Connecticut shoreline, this is the place to do it. Hello, Judith from Ohio. Judith used to volunteer at the Nature Center. We still count her as a volunteer, though. It's one of those things, once you're a volunteer here, you're always a volunteer here, even if you're in Ohio. But look, there, out across there is our beach. You can see some beautiful views of the marsh. You've got the channels going through there. That's probably a bit of Tom's Creek coming through. It's one of these places that once I'm here, I kind of don't want to walk away because it's just so beautiful out here. And actually that dead stump right there, that looks like a cherry, like it was a cherry as well. So cherries, they're fast growing. They produce their fruit, but they don't live very long. There's a big one back there. So in the back there, you see there's a cluster. I was pointing right at it. There's a cluster of trees that looks like a maple, and then to the left of that, that's a really large cherry. Doesn't look like it's in very great shape, except the very top has some greenery. And you can't see it, but an osprey just flew right over my head above the canopy. Oh, and look at this tree. There's a beautiful tree. I would call this a wolf tree. It's a large tree all on its own. It's got poison ivy growing up it. And it looks like, oh, is this a post oak? I'm going to have to check that one. That's got a really broad leaf and tiny points. Gonna have to look this one up. Look at, you got to look up though. Let's see if I can get you all to see what this tree looks like. Is that the coolest thing? The gimbal doesn't like me pointing that far up, but look at that tree. How awesome is that? All right. Greenway Trail still working on the trail over there. A little bit more chainsaw work. All right, we've got some people going by. And here's another cherry tree. There's a few things. They get this black knot. They get these big things like that. Look at that, you can see the sap coming out of it. A few things that those cherry trees get. But yes, the birds love to eat them. I like eating them. Even though they're a bit tart, I will still eat them. So here's some Virginia creeper. That's 5 leaves. I have not shown any allergy to it, but again, you want to watch out for it because some people are allergic to it. Here's some sumac, not poison sumac. This looks like sumac. So if you look at the leaf, so if you've seen my other programs, and again, you can go to the website to see them. This is a compound leaf. Now I'm going to ask people not to go and pluck leaves off. I'm doing this for a demonstration. But if you look at the leaf, these are leaflets, part of a compound leaf, but along the stem you can see these little wings coming out. And that's how I can tell this is winged sumac. Oh, some big grape leaves right there. So grape leaves are edible. My grandmother was Greek, and she used to harvest these, and I don't know if she ever cooked them herself, but there was a Greek restaurant nearby, and she would give them to the Greek restaurant. So again, this is a very popular trail for bikers. We've had several bicycles go by, walkers go by. I would say this is a completely handicap accessible trail. You could take a wheelchair without much difficulty, a stroller. They ask you not to bring horses on the trail. Horses can't go over the bridges. They've got some neat plastic type bridges, so they can't go on that. All right, take a look at that. These grapes are starting to grow here. Now, the grapes that we have in Connecticut, you can eat them. They're not as flavorful as some of the hybridized grapes. They don't taste like the grapes that you get at the grocery store, but they're still good. Oh, there's a spider. I don't know if you guys can see it. Maybe it was a daddy longleg. It disappeared quickly though. All right, that's pretty neat. This is the largest high bush blueberry I have seen. This is gigantic. This is all high bush blueberry in here. Look how big this is. This is gonna be fantastic. You have grapes and blueberries growing all together. Although the grapevine looks like it's taking the blueberry bush down eventually, if that grapevine keeps growing larger. So those are the grapes up there, and then these are the blueberries down here. That is pretty neat. See them growing together like that. Someone says the grapes that they have a gummy texture. I would agree. The wild grapes that are growing around here, and they're not all native. There are some non-native grapes. I don't know if they're listed as invasive. If something isn't harmful to the environment, it could be a non-native, or sometimes referred to as a exotic. But some of the grapes do get a gummy texture. Look at that view again. It's again one of those places where you just want to stop and enjoy it for a time. Ooh, some asters. One of my favorite wildflowers are asters. I really enjoy these. They come in so many different varieties, so many different colors. Lots more poison ivy. Again, you're going to really want to watch out for poison ivy. You don't want to go off of the trail. This is a very wide trail. It's really nice because it's so wide. Now, we looked at a sapling of a sassafras and a big sassafras. And now we can take a look at a mid-aged sassafras. This is a sassafras right here. If you've seen my other programs, you know sassafras can have 3 different shaped leaves. There's a mitten that's 3 fingers, or the mitten it looks like a mitten. And then there's the ghost or the dinosaur track, which I think you can see one right there. And then there's a simple oval. All right, now we're moving back into the shade. I wish that you guys could know the temperature right now, like if I had a thermometer on me. I'm here in the sun. It's pretty warm. I'm not feeling a lot of wind, but it's pretty warm. As soon as I get up here into the shade, there will be a very definite difference. You immediately start to feel it cooling, the cooling effect of trees. And that's exactly what the trees are doing. They're cooling, they're oxygenating. There go our Greenway trail maintainers. They use that little cart to go up and down the trail, picking up trash and debris and making sure the trail is clear and safe. So the state of Connecticut really appreciates the volunteers that we have. And here at Hammonasset, we have many groups of volunteers that are fantastic. The Shoreline Greenway, they do great work. They've raised a lot of money to really make this trail something special. We've got the Monunketuck Audubon that helps monitor and purchases new birdhouses, and then they monitor the birdhouses. We've got the Friends of Hammonasset that do things throughout the park. They've helped the Greenway Trail. They've helped with the Monunketuck Audubon. They donate a lot of money to the Nature Center and to the Mutt Mitt Project. And then the volunteers at the Nature Center. I've got a great core of volunteers that are helping make these videos. If you visit the website, there's a lot more to these videos than just the video. So if you visit the website, there are many volunteers that spend hours. Each video, it's probably 5 hours for each video to come up with all of the content and to load the videos, label them so that people can find them again. So really want to let our volunteers know how much we appreciate them. And we have another high bush blueberry. The Friends also run cleanup days and beach cleanings and trash pickups, which is great. Another great program. All right, look at that view again. The views just can't be beat along this trail. This is one of the most beautiful trails that we have here at the park. I don't know if you heard how fast those bicycles were going, but they were cruising right by. It's a nice, wide, flat, easy to walk trail. So they're able to go pretty quickly along the trail. There's a lone little pine tree in here in this group. So pines are one of those pioneer species. It's not going to be a climax for it. Well, maybe not a pioneer species. It's a transitional species as the forest is going from an open field into a thick wooded forest. And there's a really nice example of a hickory tree with a strange little crook in the trunk of that hickory tree. So that's pretty neat to see that. I'm going to take a second here to check and see if we have any comments. Somebody's talking about how it's definitely cooler in the shade. Do we move the grapevines overpowering the trees? Sometimes. Most of the time we're going to focus on the bittersweet though. Bittersweet is a much more harmful vine. So, and there's a lot of it in the park. So we're going to spend more effort controlling the bittersweet. Any other? So if anyone has any questions, you can post them at any time. And I really appreciate people putting up where they're messaging from. I also appreciate it if you let your friends know about these programs. We're really trying to build up our online outreach. So the more people you can let know about these programs, the better we can do at education. Look at that beautiful rock outcropping over there. It's in the marsh. So occasionally you do find bedrock in the marsh. That looks like it's actually bedrock, not left by a glacier. Okay, a lot of Hammonasset is glacial deposit, but this looks like it's bedrock. Can zoom in on it. That's pretty darn neat to see that. That's a quick change of environment right there. So again, if you follow us or like us on Facebook, that's a good way to let people know about these programs. Over on this side of the trail, I've been focusing a lot on the marsh. But this side of the trail, this is where it looks like an upland wooded forest. not much different from the forest. If you're inland Connecticut, this is a forest that you're going to be pretty familiar with. If you've ever hiked out on a trail in Concoponcet or American Legion, a little bit different up in American Legion, but this is a pretty common forest. There's oaks and maples, some hickory here or there. Occasionally you got a cedar tree. So the cedars, they're not going to be very shade tolerant. They're not going to survive. Once this is all established with a thick canopy of those mature hardwood trees, you will not see as many cedars. You can see the cedars that are here are pretty old, not very green, not much green left on them, so they're dying out. But that is a natural thing. That's what occurs in a forest. It transitions from a field to a forest. And then if we had a forest fire or something that would bring it back into a field or some other minor disaster. There go our Greenway Trail people again. Here's a little side trail cut into it, and we're just going to take a quick peek up here. I don't think it goes very far. But if we go up here, now speaking to one of my former supervisors, this area there actually used to dig, was sort of like a sand pit or a soil pit for the park. But this is a beautiful little, you get into the thick area of the woods. It's pretty nice up here. A lot more cedars. They're all, I don't see any that are alive, but there are more cedars up here. And there's a little catbird landed over there. It's pretty cool. All right, I'm just turning around here. That wasn't too fast of a turn for everybody. We're going to go back down onto the trail. We're actually pretty close to Route 1 now. Here's another high bush blueberry. Very cool. If you can't tell, I love the blueberries. High bush blueberry, low bush blueberry, it doesn't matter. I like blueberries. All right, so let's continue down our trail. Now, if you look here, you're looking out at the marsh again. It looks like a little bit of some Phragmites growing on the edge of the marsh. But again, I want you to take notice. The marsh transitions to this upland forest because of the topography of the park. This part of the park comes right into an upland forest. Almost immediately. You go from Salt Marsh to upland forest. And then if I pan over here, you can look back at those rocks again. Here's another view of those little rock outcropping over there with a nice little cedar grove growing on it. So this, I believe, is where they used to dig the soil out for the park. When they were working around the park, if they needed some soil, they would come back in here and dig this out. This would have been in the, I guess, the 60s. So you can see we've got, looks like some birch down here. That's one of the early trees to grow in. But all these trees are much smaller. Oh, there's the trunk of a, looks like a gray birch. That white one, most people will call that a white birch. In Connecticut, it's probably more likely a gray birch. They look really similar, the gray birch and the white birch. And actually, I think they say that Connecticut is the sort of the boundary. You go north and they're all going to be white birch. You go south and they're all gray birch. But here we get sort of a hybrid, and you can't really tell them apart. So it could either be a hybrid or you just can't tell them apart. That definitely looks like it was a sand pit at one time, all dug out in there. Looks like a little glacial boulder up there too. Looks like they stopped digging before they dug too far into that glacial boulder. I believe this is where those little stairs, they circle around and come down over here. We've got a lot of grapevine. Look at how, now that's why some plants are pretty harmful to other plants. Look at how that grape is totally taken any light away from whatever it's growing on. Whatever is under there isn't getting any light. Bittersweet does this much more often than the grapes. And then if you look over here, let me pan over. You can see there's one with some bittersweet. Looks like a little Virginia creeper up there as well, and some grape growing over that one. And beyond it, now see, you can see the bittersweet growing up the trunk. That's a cherry tree with bittersweet, that thick green in the center. That's why it's an invasive. And there's a nuthatch. I don't know if you guys can see it. Let me see if I can zoom in here. There's a nuthatch dancing around up the trunk of the tree. Hopefully everybody can see that little nuthatch. That's pretty cool. And I don't see him any longer. So we are on the Shoreline Greenway trail that goes through along Route 1 at Hammonasset. Oh, and we have another invasive. Unfortunately, there are lots of them. If you look at this tree right here, this is going to be the Norway Maple. I've talked about this in other videos. If you break the stem of one of these leaves, you're going to see it's creamy white inside, where the sugar maple, which has a similar leaf, is going to be clear inside. And the trunk of the Norway maple is a little bit different. The bark is going to be a little bit different. This is a Norway maple trunk. Okay, this looks like a really great tree to do a bark rubbing. And I did a bark rubbing program. So you can go and look at the past programs and see the bark rubbing one. This looks like a great one for bark rubbing. And then over here, I was just waiting for those bikers to go by. Looks like we've got our, let's see, there's poison ivy, poison ivy. I got to get to this trunk without going through poison ivy. I don't think I can. So I'm just going to step out on this rock and show you that's the trunk of a sugar maple. So you can see it's a bit different, more irregular, a little rougher, a lot rougher for a sugar maple than a Norway maple. Someone's asking what bark rubbing is. You just take a piece of paper, press it against the tree and rub a crayon on it, or you could use charcoal or other things, but a crayon works really well. And you'll get the texture of the bark coming out on the paper. It's a fun little project to do. So that one should already be up on the website in the Virtual Learning Center. So go to megspointnaturecenter.org's Virtual Learning Center. You can see a whole program on bark rubbing. Sugar maple seems to have looser bark. Yes, it does. It's a rougher, shaggier. It can flake off easier. The Norway maple, tight grooves, smoother bark. There's a lot of poison ivy at my feet here. So I would really not recommend walking down into that area. If you don't get poison ivy, that doesn't mean you should touch it, because you can lose your immunity. The more you touch it, and also the older you get, you lose your immunity as you get older as well. So this looks like a Norway here. Let's check. Let's see if I can show you the creamy inside. No, this was a sugar. It's clear inside. That's cool. All right, let's. Oh, there's another. The really thick trunked trees. That's what draws my attention all the time as I'm walking through the woods. And this one looks like. This looks like a black oak. A little bit hard. There's some vines growing up there. Not poison ivy, it doesn't look like. Oh, it might be. Those might be three groups of 3 leaves. All right, so we're getting out along Route 1. Let me just quickly show you. This is Route 1 here. But the reason you want to go all the way to the end of the trail, I'm going to show you in a second here. Look, there's some tiger lilies growing in here. Tiger lily's not one of our natives, but it does grow out quite a bit. There we have our tiger lily. Black oak has a little bit different bark. Red oak has a little bit of red inside the grooves of the red oak, where the black oak doesn't. The leaf is a little bit different as well. Those leaves were too tall for me to really show you. But you can also tell by the acorn. That's a much better way. And I didn't see any acorns on the ground. The poison ivy is too thick on the ground there. And the Greenway trail is too clean. Can't see them. But the red oak gets it's a deeper cup on the acorn than the black oak. I hope I didn't just reverse that. I did mention that I have dyslexia, and I do occasionally reverse things like that. So you always want to check my facts. And I always go back and check my facts as well. I have to learn all these little mnemonics to try and keep track of things. Here's another raspberry. That's a nice example. Look at that segmented stem right there. But this is why you want to go to the end of the trail. It's a little bit loud being out on Route 1. But look at that view. All right, let's take a second. I'm just fascinated by the view, and I'm looking for birds. I hear red-winged blackbirds, but I'm not seeing any. Oh, here's one. Let's see if I can get him on camera here. This is why I couldn't see him. He's on the power line over my head. So he's not displaying his red wing completely. That's a male red-winged blackbird. Okay, let's, boy, it's bright out here. I can't see. I'm going to walk to the end here into the shade and then answer people's questions at that time. So here's some Phragmites, also known as common reed. This tall right here. Again, that's another invasive. But look at the incredible views as you walk along this trail. You can look right back out and see that's the backside of our beach over there. There's a great little informational stop-off that the Greenway Trail has put together. That's pretty neat. There's an oak tree growing up here, a very small one. I don't know, that looks like its trunk is pretty close. I think that's a pin oak. The roots are pretty close to salt, so I'm not sure if that one's going to survive too many high tides. Let's go back and view. That's looking back at our backside of our beach again. I think you can see some umbrellas back there. And here's a shady spot coming up. I can try and answer some of your questions. Okay, let's see what we have. Fantastic job learning things. Somebody says we have some in our wall on the lake. Probably another comment somewhere. Under the lilies, that could have been great. I didn't look too closely at that. Someone says I thought it was a daylily. Turk's caps. I'm not sure what the... I remember the Turk cap, but I remember the name. I don't remember what it looked like. Is the cedar good for something other than rotting to be picked up? I believe it was cut and the Greenway Trail uses them for signposts, or the park does. But yes, we do use those cedars. Those cedar posts are great. Oh, catbird just flew by. I hope everybody got to see that. All right, I'm not seeing, I think I answered a lot of the questions. Hopefully I was able to. Hopefully you're enjoying these programs. I'm seeing a lot of great comments, so I think that you are. Tomorrow I was going to be traveling to another park, but I believe we're looking at a lot of rain tomorrow, so I might switch it up, do something inside tomorrow, and then maybe I'll go to 2 parks next week. I want to make sure to visit as many state parks as I can before the Nature Center opens. That will really limit my ability to travel. But this is the Shoreline Greenway Trail. I encourage you to come out and enjoy it. I'm going to show you just the last bit of the trail. There's a little bridge here, and then that goes out onto one of the side roads off of Route 1. So again, these programs will happen Tuesday through Friday at 11 o'clock. Please follow us or like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, visit our website. You can also see short snippets on Instagram, ranger.russ on Instagram, and the Meggs Point Nature Center Instagram. I don't post on that, but we have volunteers that will post on the Meggs Point Nature Center Instagram as well. So until tomorrow at 11, this is Ranger Russ signing off from... And one last question, is the trail a loop? It's a one-way. You come out and then you turn around and go back. So unfortunately, no loop for the Greenway Trail. All right. This is Ranger Russ signing off until tomorrow at 11. Unless I find some really unusual, cool thing, I will put that up whenever I find them. So I'm going to sign off for now. Thank you for watching.